My fiancée broke up with me for a better man that her family picked. She flung the ring at me. You're sad. Keep your cheap ring. After 2 years, she's losing it because she sees how happy I am with my thriving business and my love. Hey everyone, I need your help before we start today's video. We can see that the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the finest ways to help us. It's fast, free, and it helps us keep making great stuff for you. Your help means everything. Let's work together to make this channel bigger. Thank you very much. Let's get the video going now. Hey, Reddit. My fiancée broke up with me after 4 years together, called me pitiful and said I had crazy dreams, and then went with her new guy the same day we broke up. 2 years later, my dreams came true and I was doing well. The best part is that I ruined her new boyfriend's job. She lost it. This is what happened. I, a 29-year-old man, met my ex-fiancée, a 26-year-old woman named Brooke, in the most silly way possible. At 2 a.m., I'm in the library. I was so tired from coding for 12 hours straight that when this girl with perfectly combed hair and a coffee cup tripped and spilled her latte all over my laptop, I couldn't believe it. Most people would have gone crazy, but I just looked at her and remarked, "Well, at least my code has some flavor now." She chuckled instead of running away. 4 years together, 8 months engaged, and 4 years of thinking we had something real. I had saved up for 6 months to buy the ring I used to propose. She agreed, sobbed tears of joy and posted photographs on social media with remarks about eternity. And she would come to my apartment on the 3rd floor. My house was about 600 square feet. In real estate terms, the building had character means that everything was damaged and the landlord didn't care, but Brooke appeared to love it. We used string lights from Target and posters I had collected over the years to adorn. My cat, Python, was next. I named him that, of course. My rescued tabby had this terrible tendency of knocking things off of every surface. But every night, without fail, he would curl up between us on the bed. Brooke always said she liked dogs more, but I would catch her talking to Python when she thought I wasn't around. Her parents never said they disliked me directly, but they did say it a lot. I got the treatment that kills you with 1,000 paper cuts instead. That look of disapproval from her mother was constantly there. The way her father asked about my small computer project was like how you would question a child about their imaginary buddy. There is a lot of positive energy there. Family dinners were like performance art, and I was both the audience and the punchline. But here's the deal. Brooke seemed different back then. She would roll her eyes at the drama at the country club and make fun of how stuffy they were. We'd be sitting on my futon, eating Chinese takeout and watching Netflix on my laptop, which took 5 minutes to load anything. She'd tell me that none of the money stuff mattered. That was a total lie. But I'm getting ahead of myself. About 6 months before the end, our relationship started to fall apart. Brooke's college roommate was getting married. For months, I saved up money to rent a nice tuxedo and buy a wedding gift. Since we are engaged, I thought this would be fun. A look ahead to our own wedding. It felt like we were in another world when we went to the reception. There were ice sculptures, a live orchestra, and champagne that probably cost more per bottle than I spend on groceries each month. I felt like I had walked onto the wrong movie set since everyone looked like they had just come out of a magazine. Brooke was a good fit. Of course, she was in her element talking to old classmates about their positions at investment banks and consulting firms, their new apartments in cool areas, and their plans for lavish vacations. I'm standing there sipping a single drink and trying to talk to individuals who keep asking what I do. They lose interest as soon as I mention startups. Brooke had asked not to sit with her college buddies since they sometimes be a little too much. But somehow we wound ourselves at a table with her parents' friends instead. They were elderly couples with a lot of money who spent the whole time chatting about their real estate and stock holdings. I tried to explain my startup in words they would understand when they asked about my work. That was a big error. One guy literally laughed and said, "Still playing with computers, huh? When are you going to get a real job? Especially now that you're getting married. Time to grow up." And here's the part that stung. Brooke didn't defend me. She just looked embarrassed and changed the subject to the bride's dress. Later, when I brought it up in the car, she said I was being too sensitive and that I should have just played along better. The second incident happened a few weeks later when her mother invited me for coffee without Brooke. Just the two of us. We met at this upscale cafe in her neighborhood, the kind of place where a basic latte costs $8 and everyone looks like they're conducting important business meetings. She showed up 15 minutes late wearing designer everything and didn't apologize. Just launched straight into her agenda. "I've been thinking about your situation," she said, like my life was a problem she needed to solve. "And I have some connections who might be able to help you find something more stable." She pulled out a folder full of job listings she'd printed out. Entry-level positions at banks, insurance companies, corporate office jobs. The kind of soul-crushing 9-to-5 work that would have killed everything I was passionate about. "These are real careers," she explained, sliding the papers across the table with benefits, retirement plans, growth potential. "You could start at the bottom and work your way up like Brody did." I stared at the papers, genuinely speechless. "You want me to give up my startup to become what? A claims adjuster?" She looked at me like I was a child refusing to eat vegetables. "I want you to be realistic about your future, about Brooke's future. She deserves security, not fairy tales." The conversation went downhill from there. She kept using phrases like, "when you're ready to grow up," and "Brooke needs a provider, not a dreamer." She never raised her voice, never lost her composure, but every word was designed to make me feel small and inadequate. The worst part, when I told Brooke about it later, she didn't seem surprised or upset that her mother had ambushed me. She just said, "She means well. Maybe you should at least look at those jobs just as a backup plan." That's when I knew the poison was already spreading. The beginning of the end started with what Brooke called just a casual family dinner. She asked me to wear a blazer. When I showed up to their estate, and yeah, it's big enough to call an estate, I realized this wasn't going to be the intimate family gathering Brooke had described. The driveway looked like a luxury car dealership. BMWs, Mercedes, a couple of Audis. My 2008 Honda Civic with the dent in the bumper and the check engine light that had been on since Obama was president looked like it had wandered into the wrong neighborhood. The real kicker, this wasn't just family. Brooke's dad had invited his business associates and their sons. Guys who looked like they'd stepped out of a LinkedIn success story. Ivy League educations, summer internships at Goldman Sachs, fathers who play golf with senators. The kind of people who use summer as a verb. The conversation flowed like they were all reading from the same script. Investment strategies, European vacations, property portfolios. Meanwhile, I'm over here with my most exciting recent purchase being name brand cereal instead of the store brand. Real thrilling stuff. Then came the targeted questions. Delivered with surgical precision. "So, you're still working on that little tech project?" Brooke's father asked. "It's a startup." I corrected, trying not to sound defensive. "We're in early development, but we're making solid progress." I didn't mention that our last investor meeting had been a disaster or that my co-founder Jake and I had been pulling 80-hour weeks trying to fix a bug in our prototype that was making it crash every time someone tried to upload a file larger than 50 megabytes. Technical difficulties aside, we were broke and running on fumes. One of his friends, this guy with perfect teeth and a February tan that screamed "I winter in Florida," chuckled like I just told him the earth was flat. "Tech is so volatile these days. You sure it's a wise investment of time? Maybe a backup plan wouldn't hurt." The condescension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. And here's the part that really stung. Brooke didn't say a word in my defense. Usually, she'd jump in with something about how passionate I was or how she believed in what we were building. This time, nothing. Then they brought out Brody. Brooke's mother introduced him like he was the second coming. Brody just made junior partner at a top corporate law firm. Princeton undergraduate, Yale Law. Such a brilliant mind. Brody was everything I wasn't. Tall, perfectly groomed, the kind of guy who probably had his suits tailored and never had to check his bank balance before buying coffee. He talked about his recent bonus like it was casual conversation. The condo he just bought in the right part of town, his 5-year plan to make full partner. And Brooke, she was eating it up, asking questions about his work, laughing at his mediocre jokes, showing more interest in his career than she'd ever shown in mine. Every question she asked him felt like a small betrayal. I barely said 10 words the entire night. Every time I tried to contribute to the conversation, Someone would politely listen for about 5 seconds before steering things back to Brody's accomplishments or someone else's success story. I was watching Brooke transform into someone I didn't recognize. The girl who used to make fun of pretentious people was suddenly one of them. When we got back to my apartment that night, something had shifted. She complained about the broken elevator that had been out of order for months. She wrinkled her nose when Python jumped on the bed, something that had never bothered her before. She mentioned how small the bathroom was, like she was seeing the place for the first time. That's when I knew it was over. I just didn't know she was going to make it official so soon. A week later, Brooke showed up at my place after work, still wearing her business casual outfit from her marketing job at her dad's friend's company. A job she got without an interview. But that's a whole other story about how connections work when you have the right last name. She sat across from me at my tiny IKEA dining table, the same table where we'd had countless takeout dinners, game nights with friends, and late-night conversations about our future together. But this wasn't going to be one of those conversations. "We need to talk," she said, and I could tell she'd been rehearsing this. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she continued, not meeting my eyes, about us, about my future, about what I need. I knew where this was heading, but I let her talk. "I love you, but I need stability. I can't keep waiting for you to figure it out. My family made me realize I need someone who's already there. Someone who can provide the life I deserve. Someone like Brody," I said flatly. She didn't even have the decency to look surprised that I'd connected the dots. "Yes, someone like Brody." And then her mask slipped. "Look, I tried to make this work," she said, gesturing around my cramped apartment like it was evidence of some moral failing. "I really did. But I can't pretend anymore that this is the life I want. Living in some rundown building, worrying about money, dating someone who can't even afford to take me somewhere nice." This was the same person who used to say she loved our cozy nights in, who claimed she didn't care about fancy restaurants or expensive things. "You're 29 years old and you're still playing with computers in your bedroom like you're 19, she continued, her voice getting sharper. "Brody owns a condo downtown. He takes me to restaurants where people recognize him. He doesn't have to save up for months just to buy a decent ring." That last part hit like a physical blow. I'd worked double shifts for 6 months to afford her engagement ring. It wasn't huge, but it was real and I'd been proud of it. "Wow, I didn't know that's what you thought about it. Brooke, you've been telling me this for 4 years. Why spend all that time?" she went on. "I gave you 4 years to get your act together and become someone worth staying with. But you're still the same broke dreamer I met in college, except now you're older, and it's just pathetic." After some back and forth, the argument escalated and she did something I'll never forget. She yanked the engagement ring off her finger and threw it at me. It bounced off my chest and clattered onto the floor. "Here, take your cheap ring back," she said with disgust. "Broy's already talking about getting me a real one from Tiffany's, not some discount jewelry store." I stared at the ring on the floor. The ring I'd saved up for. The ring she'd cried happy tears over just months ago. The ring that represented everything I'd hoped we'd build together. "You know what's pathetic?" I said, standing up. "Pretending to love someone for 4 years while secretly keeping score. Pretending to be someone you're not because you're too much of a coward to own your shallowness from the start." Her face flushed red. "At least I'm not wasting my life chasing some impossible dream that's never going to happen." "You're right," I said, picking up the ring from the floor. "You're not wasting your life. You're just wasting mine." She grabbed her purse, suddenly eager to leave now that she'd said her piece. "Brody is picking me up at 8. The final twist of the knife. She wanted me to know she was going straight from ending our engagement to a date with her upgrade. "Good for you," I said, opening the door for her. "I hope you're very happy together." 2 days later, she was Instagram official with Brody. Not even a week after ending our engagement, there they were in matching outfits at some luxury resort in the Hamptons. His arm around her waist, her smile wide and carefree. Caption: "Found my forever." Meanwhile, I was still sleeping on the side of the bed we used to share. Still finding her hair elastic bands in random places. Still had half her stuff in my apartment because she hadn't found time to pick it up yet. The engagement ring sat on my dresser, a daily reminder of how stupid I'd been to believe in forever. I wish I could say I channeled my heartbreak into immediate success, that I became some tech mogul overnight through sheer force of will. But that's movie nonsense. Real life is messier. I spiraled hard. My startup crashed exactly 1 month after our breakup. Our investors pulled out after our prototype failed spectacularly during what was supposed to be our big demo. The app crashed 3 times in the first 5 minutes. And when it finally worked, it ran so slowly that everyone in the room started checking their phones. Jake, my co-founder, took a job at Microsoft 2 weeks later. Can't blame him. He had student loans and a girlfriend who actually supported his career. I was suddenly alone with a failed company, a lease I couldn't afford, and savings that were disappearing faster than free food at a college event. I had to give up the apartment, but my friend Kai saved my ass. This guy I'd known since freshman year, who never quite understood what I saw in Brooke, but supported me anyway. His place was even smaller than mine, a 1-bedroom where the living room doubled as his office. But he cleared out half his closet without me even asking, and let me and Python crash in his spare room. Kai's reaction when I showed up at his door with my life in garbage bags. Dude, I always knew she was high maintenance, but damn, she really said your ring was cheap. That thing cost more than my car. Then after a pause, well, my car is a piece of but still. That's a real friend right there. Meanwhile, Brooke's perfect new life was playing out like a highlight reel on social media. Vacations to places I'd only seen in movies. Dinners at restaurants where the menu doesn't have prices. Every post felt personal, like she was saying, "See, this is what I deserve. This is what you never could have given me." The absolute lowest point came when I ran into Brooke and Brody at a cafe downtown. I was there picking up an Uber Eats order because that's what my life had become. My car's AC had been broken for 3 months. I couldn't afford to fix it, so I was driving around in 90 degrees heat with the windows down, sweating through whatever clean shirt I had left. My phone was at 15% battery after a 10-hour shift, and I still had 4 more deliveries to make if I wanted to hit my daily goal. There they were, sitting outside like they'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. Brooke had this new haircut, one of those expensive styles that looks effortless, but probably took 2 hours and cost more than I made in a week. Brody was wearing sunglasses that I'm pretty sure cost more than everything I was wearing combined. They were laughing about something, holding hands across the table, looking like the poster couple for living your best life. Then Brody saw me first. Well, he said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Look who it is, still delivering food, I see." His smirk was pure malice. This wasn't accidental recognition. He was enjoying this. Brooke looked up and saw me standing there in my wrinkled Uber Eats shirt, holding a bag of food that cost more than I'd spent on groceries all week. For a split second, I thought I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe. But then she smiled. Actually smiled. The condescension was suffocating. I grabbed the bag and walked away without another word. But I heard Brody say just loud enough for me to catch. "Dodged a bullet there, didn't we?" And Brooke's laugh in response. That moment broke something in me. Standing there in the summer heat, sweating through my uniform, listening to my Fiancée and her new boyfriend mock my failures. That was the last day I allowed myself to be a joke. I went home to Kai's apartment that night, deleted every social media app from my phone, and told him what happened. His response, "Bro, that guy sounds like the kind of person who thinks mayo is spicy." And she laughed, "Nah, man. Time to show these trust fund babies how the real world works." I cut everything out. Social media, distractions, self-pity, negative people. I went into full rebuild mode like my life depended on it. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. 4 hours a night if I was lucky. Days were for Uber Eats. Evenings were for my night shift stocking shelves at the grocery store. And any spare moment was spent rebuilding my startup from scratch. But this time was different. I got smart about it. No more chasing investors with half-baked ideas and flashy presentations. I learned to bootstrap, to build something real before asking for anyone's money. No more trusting people easily. I kept my circle small, just Kai and a couple other ride-or-die friends who'd proven themselves when things got ugly. Kai was incredible through all of this. He'd bring me coffee during my late-night coding sessions, make sure I ate something besides protein bars, and never once complained about me turning his living room into a disaster zone. He even helped me land my first few enterprise clients through connections at his job. Didn't ask for anything in return, just wanted to see me succeed. For 2 years, I completely disappeared from Brooke's world. Had no idea what she was doing, who she was with, whether she was happy. And honestly, I stopped caring. While she was playing house with Brody, I was grinding harder than I'd ever worked in my life. My new startup idea came from my previous failure. Instead of trying to create some revolutionary consumer app that would change the world, I pivoted to B2B software, specifically AI-powered contract analysis for law firms. Kai's take on this pivot. So, you're basically building software to replace lawyers, dude. You're going to save the world and get revenge at the same time. That's some next-level supervillain stuff right there. It was boring, unglamorous work that nobody posts about on social media. But it solved a real problem I'd experienced firsthand when trying to navigate legal documents during my first startup. Small law firms were drowning in paperwork, spending hours on tasks that could be automated. Our software could analyze contracts, spot potential issues, and flag important clauses in seconds instead of hours. And more importantly, people were willing to pay for it. Then everything changed. Started small. A mention in an industry publication, a testimonial from a satisfied client that opened doors. Word spread in legal circles that there was this new tool that could do the work of junior associates at a fraction of the cost. Suddenly, I wasn't chasing clients anymore. They were calling me. My team was incredible. People who believed in the vision, who worked just as hard as I did, who became like family. Jake actually reached out during this phase, wanting to come back. Said Microsoft was fine, but he missed the startup energy. I told him we were good. Not out of spite, but because the team I had now was solid. Within months, we were scaling fast, really fast. We landed a contract with one of the top 5 law firms in the country, which led to more contracts, more recognition, more investors wanting in. The company that had started in Kai's living room was suddenly opening offices in London and Singapore. We were expanding globally, disrupting an industry that had operated the same way for decades. But here's the beautiful irony. Our biggest market disruption was in corporate law, specifically financial services law, the exact area where Brody worked. Our AI tools were making junior associates obsolete, automating the grunt work that guys like Brody had built their early careers on. When I realized this connection, Kai nearly choked on his coffee, laughing. Wait. You're telling me that your company is literally putting trust fund lawyers out of business and Captain America wannabe has no idea. The first time I saw Brooke again was at an industry conference. Not as a guest this time, but as a featured speaker. A year earlier, I couldn't have afforded the entry ticket. Now, I was on the main stage talking about how AI was reshaping legal services to an audience of executives and investors. After my talk, shaking hands with people who wanted to do business, I spotted Brooke's parents across the room. The change in their demeanor was immediate and obvious. Her mother's glass froze halfway to her lips. Her father, who had once mocked my little computer project at his dinner table, gave me a slow, respectful nod. Then I saw Brooke. She was standing off to the side, frozen, staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. She looked good, but different. The carefree confidence from her Instagram posts was nowhere to be seen. She looked smaller somehow. We didn't approach each other. We didn't speak, but I saw the exact moment the realization hit her. The moment she understood that the pathetic guy she'd left behind was now more successful than anyone in her family's social circle. Kai's text when I told him about seeing her. Did she look like she just realized she fumbled the bag? Please tell me she looked like she just realized she fumbled the bag. From that night on, everything accelerated. Word travels fast in certain circles, especially when someone goes from zero to hero in a couple of years. Within weeks of that conference, I started getting invitations to events I'd never heard of. Brooke's father personally reached out to invite me to one of these events. I accepted, not because I wanted their approval, but because I knew exactly what this was about. They wanted to be associated with my success. When I arrived at the event fashionably late because why not, I immediately spotted Brooke and Brody. Brody looked different, stressed. His shoulders were tense. He kept checking his phone, and he had this haunted look that comes from knowing your world is falling apart but not being able to stop it. His firm had been hemorrhaging clients to companies like mine. Traditional law firms were struggling to compete with AI-powered efficiency, and the old guard was panicking. They were trying to adapt but failing, losing business to younger, more innovative companies that could deliver better results faster and cheaper. Brody probably still didn't know I was behind his problems, but he was definitely feeling the pressure. Meanwhile, Brooke knew exactly who I was. When our eyes met across the room, I saw the same expression from the conference, but worse. Pure, undeniable regret. A week after the event, she reached out. I had deleted her number years ago, but her message still came through. "Hey, it's been a while. I was wondering if we could catch up sometime. Just talk." I ignored it. Then she made a desperate move. She showed up at my office. My team had left for the day, and I was finishing up some emails when the security guard called up. "There's a woman here asking to see you. Says it's important." I didn't need him to describe her. I debated having security escort her out, but then I realized this was my moment. The moment I'd been unconsciously preparing for since the day she walked out of my life. So I let her up. She walked into my corner office, hesitantly, looking around at the modern furniture. The awards on the wall, so different from the cramped apartment we'd once shared. Her confidence was completely gone. The dismissive attitude had been replaced by something I'd never seen from her before. Genuine nervousness. "Hey," she said softly, giving me a sad smile. "It's been a while." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, and said nothing. Just watched her fidget under my gaze. She took a deep breath. I was wrong about everything. I listened to my family and threw away something real. She bit her lip, searching my face for any reaction. "I miss you. I miss us." She nodded quickly, hope flickering in her eyes. "I know I hurt you, but maybe we could start over. Try again." I stared at her for a long moment, then laughed. Not angrily, not bitterly, just genuinely amused. "Start over?" I repeated, shaking my head. "We ended the day you chose them over me," she winced. "But I wasn't done. You didn't want me when I was broke. You didn't have faith in me when I was having a hard time. You left me for someone with more money and labeled me pitiful. But now that I've made it, you want back in." Her expression sank as the words hit home. I rose up and buttoned my fitted suit jacket. "Brew, I don't think about you. I don't want you back. And I really don't need you." The door to the office opened at that moment, and my girlfriend came in. Chloe was a great product designer I met at a tech conference. She believed in our firm when we were still working out of Kai's flat. A beautiful, smart woman who made Brooke look like a vapid Instagram star by comparison. Brooke's face turned white. I smiled at Chloe and then turned back to Brooke. "You see, I did discover someone who is my type. Turns out it wasn't you after all." I took Brooke to the elevator and watched the doors lock behind us. It should have felt like a win, but it really just felt like finishing a book I'd read years before. But that wasn't the end. That was merely the first move in the endgame. A few weeks later, lawyers started to hear that Brody's company was in big danger. At an alarming rate, my company's AI-powered tools were taking the place of traditional legal services. We were quicker, less expensive, more accurate, and more productive. They charge clients hundreds of dollars an hour to perform what we can do in minutes. Brody's business was losing money attempting to compete with technology they didn't comprehend and couldn't match. Instead of changing, the old guard partners were freaking out, making rash decisions, and losing more business in the process. I heard from others in the industry that Brody was having a total breakdown behind closed doors. He was working more than 90 hours a week, yelling at young associates, and doing everything he could to keep his biggest clients. Kai's opinion. So, the guy who made fun of you for toying with computers is now getting hurt by them. Investors were withholding their money because they thought the company was an old dinosaur in a market they no longer understood. The best thing was that Brody still didn't know that I was the one who ruined his career. While Brody's career was falling apart, Brooke's parents were doing everything they could to fix things. They had treated me like a loser who was broke for years and didn't deserve their daughter. The urgent attempts to get back in touch began right away. Brooke's mom sent me polite emails to say how happy she was for me. In interviews, her father called me one of the most promising entrepreneurs of the decade. They asked me to business events and said they would be good for networking. I didn't pay any attention to it. Then her dad phoned me personally. I answered just because I was curious. He said, "I think we should talk, son," in a pleasant tone about business opportunities, possible alliances, and water under the bridge, you know. He talked about synergies and cooperation for a few minutes before getting to the point. "Hey, Brooke messed up. I get that. We all know this. But things have been hard for her lately, and I think it would be best if you two simply sat down," and I hung up in the middle of a sentence. There was no apology, no taking responsibility, just sheer self-serving damage control. I never answered their calls again after that. The moment Brody finally figured out who was to blame for his fall was amazing. This time, I was on a panel at another industry conference talking about the future of AI and the law. A CEO of a big company said in public, "Honestly, these guys are changing the game. Some of the biggest traditional firms are having a hard time keeping up." The camera then panned to the audience, where Brody's face was completely pale and his expression was a mix of shock and growing horror. You could see the exact instant it clicked. I wasn't only the ex-boyfriend of his ex-girlfriend. That night, I was the man who was slowly ruining his career. He lost it. I got a text from someone we both know. Brody recently lost his in a meeting with his partner. You need to hear this. It seems that one of the senior partners brought up my company as an example of what they needed to compete with during a strategy meeting for the whole company. Brody went utterly crazy, started yelling that I was simply a lucky fake. What would happen to my business if anything went wrong? How established law would always win in the end. What's the problem? They looked at him like he was crazy, knowing that Brody wasn't the future of their business. He was the past and I was the future. But I had one last thing to do. My company was preparing for its biggest purchase yet a few months later. We were buying out a smaller but very powerful law practice that happened to be a direct competitor of Brody's company. It wasn't simply business. This was the end of the game. We stole a few of Brody's top clients right after the deal was done. His company had to merge with a bigger competitor in order to stay in business within 6 months. Brody moved from being a junior partner to just another worker. He was probably doing the same hard job he had bragged about getting away from years before. The golden child, who had everything handed to him, was now just another lawyer trying to stay relevant in a field that had moved on without him. It wasn't over yet, though. Brooke made one last, desperate effort. 3 weeks following the official merger of Brody's company, Brooke came back to my office. This time, though, it was different. This woman wasn't the same nervous, hopeful one from before. This was the most desperate thing ever. It was about 7 p.m. on a Friday night. I was staying late to fulfill some contracts, but most of my crew had already left for happy hour. The guard called and seemed unsure. "There is a woman here, sir. She's not happy at all. She says she needs to see you right away." I told her to let her go. I had a hunch about who it was. I could hardly recognize her when the elevator doors opened. The woman I knew was no longer polished and put together. Her hair was all over the place. It looked like she had been crying because her makeup was smudged. She had on trousers and a sweatshirt that was crumpled. I had never seen her wear something so casual, even when we were still together. She rushed into my office without being asked and said, "Thank God you're here. I have called and texted. Why aren't you answering me?" I stayed cool and sat behind my desk. "Brooke, we don't have anything to talk about." "Yes, we do," she almost yelled. "I broke up with him. I broke up with Brody. It's finished." I raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. His business went under. He lost it all. He just kept blaming me. Said it was my fault that I left you, that I had messed up both of our lives. She began to walk back and forth quickly. "That's it for me. That's it for me." I said, "Good for you," without any emotion. She stopped walking around and looked at me. "Don't you understand? I have time now. We can be together once more. We can begin again." I almost laughed. Start again? I messed up. Her voice got higher and more urgent as she stated this. The worst thing I've ever done. I should have never left you. You were right about everything. My family, Brody, everything. But I'm here now and I've chosen you. She came closer to my desk, her eyes wide with fear. I know you still care about me. What we had was real. Love that is real doesn't just go away. I answered, you're right. Getting up. Love that is real never goes away. But what we had wasn't love. Her face fell apart. That's not right. You left me as soon as something better came along. That's not love. That's easy. I didn't understand. My family made me do it. I was dumb and young. Brooke, you were 26. You weren't a kid. She started to cry, ugly wailing. Please, I'm begging you. I don't have anything left. My folks won't even answer the phone when I call. You're the only thing I have. I responded coldly. I'm not your anything. I'm also with someone else. You have to go on. She grabbed my arm and held on tightly. I was wrong about the ring. It was lovely. I was just afraid. I jerked my arm back. Don't. But she couldn't stop. Anything goes with me. I will work. Everything about me will change. Please just take me back. I love you. I have always adored you. No, Brooke. It's time for you to go. No, she yelled. You don't get it. I made a mistake. One. You can't keep punishing me. After that, I contacted security. Why are you calling security? She reached for the phone to stop me. Don't you dare. You can't just kick me out. I quickly put the phone out of her reach and called. Safety. I need someone to show a guest out of my office. You jerk. She yelled. I loved you. You got the best years of my life. Tony, the guard, showed up. I'm going to require you to come with me. Ma'am. No, you don't get it. She yelled at Tony and then turned back to me. I'm giving you everything, my whole life. How can you just toss that away? I gazed at her and didn't say anything. Then Tony led her to the elevator while she was still screaming and yelling. That person only cares about you when you're old and alone, and she steals everything from you. You'll always remember that I loved you more than anyone else. The doors of the elevator shut, and she was gone. I stood there for a bit in the quiet of my office before texting Kai. I just had security take Brooke out. She went utterly crazy. I didn't have to ruin Brooke's life after all. She accomplished that by giving up real love for things that made her feel important. She had nothing left when that status went away, not even her pride. He answered right away. Dude, please tell me that someone got video. That sounds like great content for YouTube. Entitled, Ex-Fiancée had an enormous meltdown at the tech workplace would receive millions of views. I couldn't stop laughing. Even after all that craziness, Kai understood just how to put things in their proper place. In the end, I didn't have to ruin Brooke's life. She accomplished that by giving up real love for things that made her feel important. She lost everything, even her dignity, when that status went away. The greatest way to get back at them wasn't to ruin their life. It was just living mine better without.